The restaurant was quiet that evening, the kind of place where the air felt heavy with stories waiting to be told. It was one of those old steakhouses tucked in a corner of Los Angeles. Dim lights, red leather booths, and the smell of grilled meat floating in the air. People came here not for fame, not for pictures, but for silence and good food. Two men stepped inside, and immediately the atmosphere shifted. One was Keanu Reeves, known across the world for his humility, despite the weight of stardom. The other was Seagal, a man with a presence so strong he could silence a room just by walking through it. Though very different in their ways, both carried stories etched deep into their souls. They had agreed to meet for dinner. Not for business, not for publicity, but simply to share a meal as men who had walked hard roads. The hostess led them to a corner booth, and they sat across from each other. Keanu scanned the menu with his usual calmness, while Steven leaned back studying the people around them with sharp eyes. "It's been years since I've had a quiet steak in peace," Steven said, his voice deep and heavy. Keanu gave a small smile. "Peace is rare these days. Maybe that's why it tastes better when you find it." Their server appeared. She was young, no more than 22, her hair tied back neatly. But something about her eyes caught Keanu's attention. They held a weight that didn't belong to someone so young. She spoke softly, almost shyly. "What can I get for you tonight?" Steven ordered quickly a ribeye rare, while Keanu took his time. He looked up at her, his tone gentle. "What do you recommend?" She hesitated. Her lips trembled for a second before she said, "The sirloin. It's simple, but it never disappoints." Keanu nodded. "Then the sirloin it is. Thank you." As she walked away, Steven raised an eyebrow. "You noticed it too?" Keanu looked at him, curious. "Noticed what?" The way her voice broke, Steven said. "She's carrying something heavy. You can see it in her eyes." Keanu glanced back toward the kitchen, where the waitress disappeared. He had felt the same. There was a quiet pain in her, hidden behind polite words. And something in him stirred the same instinct that had led him many times to help strangers without ever speaking of it. The steaks arrived, and they began to eat. But it wasn't long before the waitress returned, filling their glasses with water. As she poured, her hand shook slightly. Keanu noticed. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Her eyes flicked to his, then quickly away. "Yes, sir. I'm fine." But her voice cracked. Steven leaned forward. "Listen, girl, you don't have to say fine if it's not true. I've seen enough battles to know when someone is carrying wounds." Her hands froze. For a moment, she stood there, caught between silence and confession. Finally, she whispered, "My mother is sick. I work double shifts to pay for her medicine. Some nights, I don't even eat. But I have to keep going." Keanu's fork paused. Midway, his chest tightened. He had known struggle, grief, and loss. But hearing her voice tremble with such honesty struck him deeply. The restaurant noise faded. For a moment, it felt like only the three of them existed in that booth too. Men who had seen the world. A young woman fighting battles no one applauded her for. Steven placed his heavy hand on the table. "You've got strength, girl. Don't ever doubt it. But strength should not mean suffering alone." Keanu nodded, his voice calm but filled with warmth. "You've given us your kindness tonight, even when your heart is heavy. Thank you for trusting us with the truth." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she smiled faintly. "No one ever asks. No one ever notices. Thank you for seeing me." As she walked away, Steven looked at Keanu. "You know, we can't just leave it there, right?" Keanu's gaze stayed on the kitchen door where she disappeared. Steady, but his heart was already decided. "No, we can't." The night outside was calm, but inside the steakhouse, emotions had shifted. Keanu and Steven continued their meal, yet both felt the weight of what the young waitress had shared. The sound of plates clattering and muted conversations around them seemed far away. The truth she had spoken had cut through the quiet like a knife. Keanu, who had always carried grief in silence, felt something stir inside him. He remembered the long nights of loss he had endured in his own life, moments when no one had been there to ask if he was okay. Hearing her whisper about her mother's sickness, about going hungry just to keep someone else alive, brought those memories crashing back. He knew that kind of pain, the kind that hid behind tired smiles. Stephen leaned back in his seat, his broad frame filling the booth. "She's a fighter," he said in a low tone. "But fighters break too, if no one steps in." Keanu nodded, his voice soft. "She's too young to carry that much weight alone." Just then, the waitress returned with a tray of bread for the table. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were red, as if she had been holding back tears in the kitchen. She set the basket down carefully, her hands trembling slightly. Keanu met her gaze. "What's your name?" She hesitated, as though no one had asked her in a long time. "Sophia," she whispered. Keanu gave her a small smile. "Thank you, Sophia, for taking care of us tonight." She nodded, trying to stay professional, but there was a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. Then she hurried away, back to the rhythm of waiting tables. Stephen leaned in closer. "You're thinking what I'm thinking?" Keanu sighed. "We can't just leave after the bill," Stephen smirked. "Good, because I'm not walking out of here while that girl's starving herself to save her mom." As they finished their meal, Keanu's thoughts wouldn't settle. He remembered times when strangers had shown him small acts of kindness, moments that had saved him without them ever knowing. Maybe tonight was his turn to do the same, when Sophia brought the check. Stephen pulled out his wallet, but Keanu stopped him. "Let me," he said firmly. Stephen shrugged. "Fine, but we're doing more than paying for steak." Keanu slipped his card into the check holder, then quietly placed a folded note inside along with it. On the note, he wrote in his steady hand, "You are not invisible. Keep fighting. You are stronger than you know." He also tucked in a generous tip, far beyond what she would ever expect. When Sophia returned and opened it, her eyes widened. She looked at the note, then at Keanu. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't know what to say." Keanu shook his head gently. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that people see you, and you matter." She covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to break down in front of them. "Thank you. No one's ever." Her voice trailed off as emotion took over. Stephen gave her a small nod. "Hold your head up, girl. Your fight is not wasted." Wiped her tears quickly and whispered, "You don't know what this means to me." As she walked away, Stephen leaned in close to Keanu again. "This isn't finished. There's more to her story." I could feel it in her voice. Keanu agreed, that the tip and the note had touched her, but the pain in her eyes told him her struggle went far deeper. The next evening, Keanu found himself unable to shake the memory of Sophia's eyes. He had seen millions of faces in his lifetime, faces of fans, strangers, and friends, but her eyes haunted him. They carried the kind of silent desperation that reminded him of his own darkest nights. Stephen called him not long after. "You still thinking about that girl?" Keanu didn't bother denying it. "Yes, she's working herself to the bone to keep her mother alive, and no one even notices." "I can't walk away from that." "Good," Stephen replied, "'cause neither can I. Meet me at the steakhouse tomorrow. We'll get answers." The following night, the two men walked back into the restaurant. Sophia was there again, moving quickly between tables, carrying trays heavier than her small frame seemed able to handle. Her smile was polite, but her body looked worn. When she reached their table, surprise flickered across her face. "You're back," she said softly. Keanu nodded. "Yes, we wanted to see how you're doing." She lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I'm fine. Really." Stephen leaned forward, his tone calm but direct. "Don't give us the word fine. We both know it's not true."
Oh.
Sophia hesitated, her lips trembling, but then she quickly changed the subject. "What can I get for you tonight?" Keanu didn't push further, but as she walked away, he noticed something troubling. There was a faint bruise on her wrist, half hidden under her sleeve. He glanced at Stephen, who had noticed too. "Did you see that?" Stephen asked Dot. Keanu nodded. "Yes, something's not right." Throughout dinner, they watched her carefully. She moved fast, avoiding long conversations, but every so often, her shoulders slumped as though she was carrying more than trays. When she finally came to refill their water, Keanu spoke softly. "Sophia, you don't have to tell us everything, but if someone is hurting you, we need to know." Her hand froze mid-pour. For a moment, her mask cracked. Voice dropped to a whisper. Please, don't ask me here. I'll see. Keanu's heart clenched. Who will see? She glanced nervously toward the back of the restaurant, where a heavy-set man stood near the kitchen, arms crossed, watching her. Stephen followed her gaze, his eyes narrowing. Him? Sophia gave the smallest nod, then quickly straightened, forcing a smile as if nothing had happened. Enjoy your meal, she said before rushing off. Keanu and Stephen exchanged a heavy look. The bruise, the fear in her voice, the man in the back, it was clear. Sophia wasn't just struggling with her mother's illness. There was something darker, something dangerous. Stephen's voice was low but steady. I've seen men like him. Before, controlling, cruel. If he has power over her, this isn't just about money anymore. Keanu's jaw tightened. Then we can't just sit here. We have to help her. For the rest of the night, they watched as Sophia moved from table to table, her smile never reaching her eyes, the man's watchful stare following her every step. By the time they left, Keanu knew one thing. This dinner was no longer about food, no longer about two friends sharing a quiet night. It had become a mission to protect a young woman who had been carrying more than anyone should. Asterisk, the rain was falling softly the next evening when Keanu and Stephen returned to the steakhouse once more. This time, their eyes weren't on the menu, or the booths around them. They were fixed on Sophia. She moved with her usual quiet grace, but her steps seemed heavier, her shoulders slumped deeper, as though the weight of the world had pressed down harder since their last visit. The heavy-set man was there again too, standing near the bar with his arms crossed, watching every move she made. His presence was menacing, like a shadow that refused to leave her side. Keanu leaned forward, speaking low so only Stephen could hear. He's not just watching her, he's controlling her. The way she flinches when he looks at her hits fear. Stephen's eyes narrowed. Then tonight we find out why. When Sophia approached their table, her smile flickered but didn't last. Keanu spoke gently. Sophia, we're worried about you. If you're in trouble, you can trust us. Hands tightened on her order pad, her knuckles white. She whispered quickly, her voice trembling. Please don't. If he sees me talking too much, it'll get worse. She stopped herself, fear choking her words. Keanu gave her a calm nod. All right, then just know this. You're not alone, not anymore. She blinked hard, as if holding back tears, then quickly hurried off. Stephen clenched his fist against the table. She's trapped, Keanu. I've seen this before. That Manny's either her boss, her debt collector, or worse. Either way, he's bleeding her dry. As they waited for their food, Keanu noticed something. Sophia slipped into the back kitchen for longer than usual. When she returned, she brushed past their table discreetly, dropping a small folded piece of paper under his napkin. Keanu waited until she walked away, then opened it carefully. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "He takes all my tips. He says, I'll never pay the debt. Please help me." Keanu single quotes, his chest tightened, his eyes darkened with anger. So that's it. He's using her, controlling her through debt, maybe threats too. No wonder she looks broken. Keanu breathed slowly, his calm voice hiding the fire building inside him. We can't just walk out tonight. Need to let her know she has a way out. Yes. They finished their meal. The heavy-set man moved closer, stopping at the bar directly across from their booth. His stare was sharp, as if daring them to interfere. When Sophia brought the bill, Keanu looked at her and spoke softly. You're stronger than you believe. Don't let him take everything from you. We'll find a way. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded faintly, as if clinging to his words like a lifeline. When the men finally left the restaurant, the rain outside was heavier. Stephen pulled his coat tight and muttered, That man isn't going to stop. If we don't step in, she'll drown under him. Keanu looked back at the glowing windows of the steakhouse, his voice steady but full of quiet determination. Then we step in, no matter what it costs. The next day, Keanu couldn't focus on anything else. The image of Sophia's trembling hands and the desperate note she had slipped him stayed in his mind. He knew too well what it meant to live under the weight of fear, to feel trapped with no escape. His own life had carried tragedies that shaped him, but this was different. This was a young woman being crushed right in front of him. Stephen called him early in the morning. His voice was sharp, almost impatient. "I couldn't sleep last night. That man's got her chained with debt, maybe more. Can't just leave her there," Keanu replied quietly. "Then tonight we find out everything." When they returned to the steakhouse that evening, Sophia looked more fragile than before. The man stood by the bar again, his eyes cold and calculating. Every time Sophia passed, his gaze followed. Like a predator guarding its prey, Keanu and Stephen waited patiently, giving her space until she brought their order. As she placed the plates on the table, Keanu spoke softly, his voice barely above. "A whisper, Sophia. We saw your note. We're not here to judge, only to help. Tell us what you need." Her eyes flickered with panic. "Please, not here. He'll notice." Stephen leaned forward, his tone low and steady. "Then meet us outside when your shift ends. We'll be waiting." For a moment she hesitated, her lips parting as if to protest. But then she gave the smallest nod, quickly walking away before the man could suspect. Hours passed, and finally, Sophia stepped out of the restaurant into the cool night air. She hugged her coat tight, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Keanu and Stephen were waiting near the corner, their presence calm but solid, like anchors in a storm. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, fear in her voice. "If he finds out, he'll—" Her words trailed off. Keanu's voice was gentle. "Then let him find us, not you. Tell us the truth, Sophia." Her shoulders shook as tears filled her eyes. "He isn't just my boss. He's the one who gave me money when my mother got sick. I had no choice. The hospital bills were too much. Said I could pay it back with my tips, but he takes everything. He says the debt never ends. I can't leave. Can't breathe." Stephen clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. "He's using you. That's not debt. That's control." Sophia wiped her tears quickly, shaking her head. "I'm trapped. If I quit, he'll come after me. He knows where I live. Knows about my mom. I can't risk her safety." Keanu stepped closer, his voice steady, filled with warmth and certainty. "Sophia, listen to me. You are not alone anymore. You don't have to fight this battle by yourself. We'll find a way to protect you and your mother." Her tears fell harder, but for the first time, hope flickered in her eyes. "Why? Would you help me? You don't even know me." Keanu's voice softened. "Because once I was lost too, and people chose to be kind when they didn't have to. It saved me. Now it's my turn." Sophia covered her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. Stephen placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've got your back, but you have to trust us." That night, beneath the streetlights and the falling mist, a silent bond was formed. Sophia, who had carried her pain alone for so long, finally found two men who refused to look away. The night of decision came faster than any of them expected. Keanu and Stephen had promised Sophia that they would not let her face the nightmare alone. But promises mean little when fear has built walls so high around a person's life. Sophia met them outside the steakhouse after her shift, her eyes swollen from crying, but her voice steadier than before. "He'll never let me go. If I try to leave, he'll hurt me or my mom. I don't want you both to get involved. It's dangerous." Keanu's calm voice carried more weight than the storm in her heart. "Sophia, we've faced dangerous before, but danger isn't the enemy fear is, and fear only wins if you stay silent." Stephen crossed his arms, his tone sharp but protective. "We're not walking away. That man's got power because he thinks no one will stand up to him. He learns he's wrong." Before Sophia could reply, the heavy-set man walked out of the restaurant, but his eyes found her immediately. His lips curled into a bitter smile as he stepped closer. "There you are, wasting time with strangers again." Sophia flinched, instinctively shrinking back. Keanu moved smoothly, standing between her and the man, his calmness like a shield. Stephen stood beside him, his presence firm, unyielding. Man sneered. "You think you can save her? She owes me. She'll never escape." Keanu's voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp. "She doesn't owe you her life. You've taken enough. ... Stephen leaned forward, his deep voice cutting like thunder. Walk away. Or you'll learn very quickly that intimidation doesn't work on men like us. For a moment, the man laughed, but his laugh faltered when he saw the quiet certainty in their eyes. These weren't just two men trying to play heroes. These were men who had lived through battles, men who had no fear left in them. Sophia's hands trembled as she watched. For the first time, she saw someone standing up to him, unshaken. The man spat on the ground, glaring at her. This isn't over. You'll regret this. He turned sharply and stormed into the night. The silence that followed was heavy. Sophia's knees gave way, but Keanu caught her before she fell. Her tears came freely now, but they weren't only of fear, they were of release. He's gone, Keanu whispered gently. And he's not coming back. Not while we're here. Stephen placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Listen, girl, you've been carrying chains that were never yours to bear. Tonight, they're broken. You and your mother are free. Sobbed into her hands, whispering, I don't know how to thank you. I thought I was invisible. I thought no one cared. Keanu shook his head softly. You're not invisible, Sophia. No, you never were. Sometimes the world just forgets to look. But I see you. And so does he. He nodded toward Stephen. And from now on, you'll never walk alone again. In the weeks that followed, Sophia and her mother found safety. With Keanu and Stephen's quiet help, they moved into a small apartment far from the steakhouse. Her mother began to recover slowly, her health no longer weighed down by fear and debt. Sophia, for the first time in years, began to smile without forcing it. And as for Keanu and Stephen, they never told anyone the details of what happened that night. To the world, it was just another dinner shared by two old friends. But to Sophia, it was the night her life was saved by the kindness of strangers who refused to look away. Sometimes, the greatest battles are not fought on screens or stages, but in quiet corners where no one is watching, where a single act of courage can change a life forever.